I pray to the Almighty to bestow upon me His truth and His wisdom, that I may convey His message and so sanctify His name and inshallah bring peace to the world. Unfortunately, everything is from the Almighty. I have to speak from Zoom, but everybody today in this day and age, unfortunately, to what we are suffering around the world, COVID and so forth, has gotten pretty well familiar with Zoom. So, with God's help, I hope that we will be successful in accomplishing our mission. The point of this gathering is to be able to convey to the world, to bring with God's help what we would say a refuah, a remedy, to be a catalyst of bringing succor, to bring a remedy for the suffering that has been ongoing for so many years. It is really actually over 100 years that there has been a rift has been driven between the creations of the Almighty, between the communities, especially in Palestine, in that a community, an area, the Holy Land, where Jews have lived for so many hundreds and hundreds of years, together with both Muslim and Christian neighbors. A beautiful history. The Holy Land was a land that people flourished, thrived, and yearned to come close to the Almighty. I would just like to mention maybe a few just of the great names that we've had the great privilege of knowing of them, and people that I have met, rabbis, had met with these rabbis, although I personally didn't have the great privilege of meeting, but one of the first great rabbis who was considered the chief rabbi in Palestine, Rabbi Sonnenfeld, of blessed memory. He was the chief rabbi of the Orthodox Jewish community. His name was Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld of blessed memory. In 1929, issued a declaration to the Arab population, an appeal actually, a touching appeal from the Jewish community to assure them that the Jewish people have no design to God forbid, take over any part of the property, the land, of what was belonging to the Arab populace at the time. And I'm just going to quote from, we have a book that's put out, the Traditional Torah Opposition to Zionism, and there I'm just going to quote a letter that we have from this rabbi. It's called Truth and Peace by Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld of blessed memory. And the time is very, very short, but I'm just going to try to quote maybe a few paragraphs of his. He says that it is 57 years, this is in 1929 when this poem is 57 years since the Almighty allowed me to ascend to the Holy Land, to take pleasure in its stones and to enjoy its earth. He said, antagonism to religion, which lamentably is prevalent in many lands abroad, has no place in the sanctified land. The one who makes peace in his heavens had spread the tabernacle of his peace over the land and the city which he chose, and there was no violence or outrage in our streets. Our esteemed neighbors honored the Jews, and the Jews respected the other inhabitants of the land. On many occasions, one group was helped by the other, as is fitting, proper for tranquil neighbors who together desire the success of their community. Note, he said their community, not communities, but their community. Also the Arabs knew and still know that the Jews seek their peace and well-being and bring a blessing upon the entire land. All of them together awaited the great day of the Almighty, in which His divine presence will return to Zion to restore its sanctity and glory as in days of old, to be a light to the nations and kingdoms. But behold now, woe unto us, that such a thing has arisen in our days, A raging, storming wind is turning upon the Jews of the Holy Land. Hatred and slander is taking root, causing the spilling of innocent blood and the destruction of the holy settlements. The soil of the Holy Land is saturated with the blood of pure innocent souls, and the voice of the blood of brothers cries out to us from the ground. He said, I am 80 years old together, and I'm skipping around because time does not permit. It's a beautiful letter to read. It's in Arabic and in English. I am 80 years old today. In the days of my old age, the Lord has bound me to see the destruction of the foundation of the settlement. I turn to all sections of the population of the Holy Land, and in particular to those who are not of the children of Israel, and from the depth of my sad, broken heart, I ask to have pity on the Holy Land, and to say to the angel of destruction, cease, remove hatred from your hearts, and don't allow yourself to be misled by the false prophecies and seductions of men who either with evil intent or because of mistaken assumptions are trying to increase division among the various parts of the population. Don't turn your ears to slander and false charges that are baseless. The Jewish inhabitants of the Holy Land do not seek, God forbid, the harm of the rest of the inhabitants. They desire, just as the other inhabitants of the land, that which is good for the land and good for all those who dwell in it. The Jews do not want to encroach upon the rest of the inhabitants. The Holy Land is a beautiful land in which, with the growth of the community and its expansion, there is room for all of its inhabitants to dwell in peace without anyone interfering with his neighbor to the slightest degree. The Jews do not want in any way to take that which isn't theirs. They certainly do not want to contest the rights of the other inhabitants to their places held by them, in which they regard with honor and consider holy. And in particular, there is no foundation to the rumor that the Jews want to acquire the Temple Mount. Just to repeat those words and to remember who he was, the head, the leader of the Jewish community. At the same time, in Hebron, which is something which is in the a point of contention so strongly today, I would like to quote Rabbi Baruch Kaplan. Rabbi Baruch Kaplan was one of the esteemed leaders of Judaism who created the Orthodox girls' schools, the girls' schools that are in literally most probably around hundreds of thousands today around the world. And in New York, around the world, he's very well known. He created the Beis Yaakov schools and was called Beth Jacob schools. And he writes, when I was in Hebron in 1929, there occurred the tragic massacre of over 20 yeshiva students, great scholars, plus another 40 members of the Jewish community. I would like to describe the error that has circulated in Jewish communities, a horrible error that accuses the Arabs in Hebron of being murderers who attacked the Jews simply because the Arabs were bad people. In order to correct the record, this error must be corrected. The Arabs were very friendly people, and the Jewish people in Hebron lived together with them and had very friendly relations with them. To take just one example, I used to have the habit of walking a mile or two out of town all by myself to visit a tree that we believe to be the tree where our patriarch Abraham met the three angels as described in Genesis. I especially enjoyed visiting the tree in the summertime. Along the way, I would talk to the Arabs, though it was mostly using our hands because I didn't speak any Arabic. Interestingly enough, no one in the yeshiva, that means the school, the boys' school, Talmudic boys' school where he studied, no one in the yeshiva ever told me it was dangerous to go by myself amongst the Arabs. He was a teenage boy. We just lived with them and got along with them. I have seen a letter from the grand rabbi of the Gerah Hasidim of those days, Rabbi Avraham Mordechai Alter of Poland, of blessed memory, regarding his trip to the Holy Land during the days when people were talking about emigrating to Palestine. He wanted to find out what kind of people the Palestinians were in order to be able to advise people whether to move there or not. He wrote in his letter that the Arabs were a very friendly and fine people. This is just one of many letters. Time constraints does not allow me to go and delve into the history of our hundreds and hundreds of years under the Turkish rule, or when it was, of course, the caliphate. It was the famous caliph who came and brought back rule to the Muslims through hundreds of years, and Jews enjoyed to be able to be citizens there and live there literally for hundreds of years. This went on, and we have to understand. It's something that you can't, what they say, there's the elephant in the room. We can't ignore that today there is a rift. There is a big problem. Something has occurred to drive a stake, a rift between our Jewish people among here, even in the United States, but not so bad in the United States, I would hope. But around the world there is an uneasiness, sometimes a mistrust, and in the Holy Land, they developed this mistrust, and unfortunately in many Arab lands. Now, in the very, very religious communities, I'm coming from New York. New York, we have a very, very large community that is very religious. We have the largest concentration of religious Jews that live in Brooklyn, New York, right across from Manhattan. Now, these Jews give their lives to practice the religion. They send their children to religious schools. We have large families, maybe an average of 7 children, and we pay individually for each the education. We pay for our kosher food. We pay for our clothing. It's a fortune, and yet we do this because our lives are to serve the Almighty. Our lives are dedicated, are devoted to serving the Almighty. And at the same time, we have a very big difference between what we believe in, one of the critical issues. And that is there's not a single Israeli flag flying in our communities. And that is the same you will find in whether it is in Stamford Hills in London or Montreal, Canada, or in Palestine, in Jerusalem, in Al-Quds, in Mea Shearim. So what is going on here? What is this confusion that you'll find communities that are strongly, strongly pro the creation of a country called the State of Israel in a land that was referred to as the Holy Land, as Palestine, that was for so many hundreds of years a land, a fabric of Muslims, Christians, and Jews, of people of diverse, different, totally, distinctly different religions who live together in the same courtyards. There's so many beautiful pictures that we have where they just live together and serve the Almighty, as I mentioned from Baruch Kaplan. We simply live together. We babysat each other's children. This is the picture of Rabbi Sonnenfeld meeting with the king of Transjordan. This was the essence of what we were. The issue of a difference of religion never played a part, never took was any impediment or a reason that we shouldn't be able to live together in peace. And this is what we were distinctly religious for these hundreds and hundreds of years, thriving and flourishing in every Arab and Muslim land. And now all of a sudden, there is a whole different world. Maybe what we can refer to it as an ersatz Judaism called Zionism in the State of Israel, that created that there is separate roads for the Palestinian non-Jews to go in part sections of the occupied part of Palestine, which it's all occupied. There's walls, tremendous walls that are being built. What is happening? But I think it's critical to understand. Judaism is a religion to be subservient to God. It's a covenant we made 3,000 years ago on Mount Sinai. We are required to uphold this religion to the letter of the law, and we try to do it to the best of our capability to uphold this. A movement started a mere 100-odd years ago from people who are almost entirely non-religious, they had a political agenda. They had a concept of making a homeland, of building a country to be able to flourish, to be a proud nation, a materialistic concept among us other nations. They shouldn't be a third world country. They're going to have an Olympic team, gold medal winning. They're going to have people who are going to win Nobel Prizes, and they're never going to be able to look at themselves that they're somehow less than another nation. Now, we as Jews, we are proud, we serve God. We're proud and we yearn to be close to God, and that makes us what we are. That is the greatness, to be close to the Almighty. When the people are lacking this closeness to God, or totally disregard the concept to be close to God, their concept is that we are a physical nation, to have a piece of land, a country with an army, then they have to yearn and they search to have a strong army and to be a land that has their control over everybody in that land. Judaism, clearly God foresaw this, and he warned the Jewish people in the Torah. He put us under oath. King Solomon wrote this in Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. He said, when I'm going to send you in exile with the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago, we are expressly forbidden to return en masse to make our own Jewish sovereignty. We are forbidden to rebel against any nation. We have to be loyal citizens in every country we reside, and we are not to make any attempts to end a godly decreed exile. We have to live amongst all the nations in peace, in harmony, and praying for the well-being of the people of the world, of the countries we reside. And that is what we've been doing for 2,000 years. And that is the key and the reason why we were able to constantly live in beautiful peace amongst people of the distinctly different religion, because they knew, as a Jew, a God-fearing Jew, we are never aspiring to take one penny, one inch of land, or anything that is not theirs, as Rabbi Sonnenfeld of blessed memory said. So we lived in the most holy of places that we had once been given to us by God, and we had been residing there for many years, and we were uprooted from there. Yet we were never deemed a threat by our co-inhabitants, the Palestinian people, because they knew, on the contrary, we teach our children to be grateful and honor and respect and live in peace with their neighbors, because we have a saying in our Torah, Mahu rachum afatu teirachum. Just as God is compassionate, you must be compassionate. We must emulate God, and we continue to go in the footsteps of this holy Torah. So on the contrary, us as Jews, we hurt at this movement that moved in and claimed the name of Judaism, the Zionist movement that is totally estranged from the Torah and made an ersatz Judaism, a movement that claims that they have a right to take over the Holy Land by misrepresenting our Torah and claiming what God in His Torah says, that it is their right to have control over the land, and totally ignore the cries and the hurts and the souls and the people of Palestine. We cannot accept that. Until today, the hundreds of thousands of Jews living in the Holy Land, under today the leadership of our chief rabbi today, as one of many other rabbis, his name is Rabbi Weiss, who took over after Rabbi Sonnenfeld and Rabbi Dushinsky. And we have hundreds of thousands of Jews living in the Holy Land, or around the world. Inevitably, in every land where there is a very religious community, they gather around the world to tell the world that we do not accept this ersatz Judaism, the establishment of a Zionist state of Israel. In fact, just one little statement that I have to state. The chief rabbi of Palestine in 1947, Rabbi Dushinsky of blessed memory, said to the United Nations, and it's written in the United Nations records, he said, "We furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. We've been fighting this fight by we don't have guns, we don't have arms, but we stand in the streets and we are brutally beaten, we are subjugated, we are oppressed, we are arrested, we are being attacked We are the Zionists who control the land. Boys and girls are arrested simply because they refuse to go to the army, because we will never serve in this army that is committing a crime against God and His creations. So let the world know that we, as Jews, remain and will remain around the world in total support for a free Palestine, a land, a holy land that we can serve and live together, that the Palestinian people should have their land, their rule over the land, they should have their self-esteem, self-respect, everything, and we can embrace them and tell them as Jews that we are totally thankful for all the good done to us through the ages. And then we can return to what the Rabbi Sonnenfeld, what Rabbi Baruch Kaplan said, what Rabbi Dushinsky said, that we always lived in peace. We want to live in peace, and we are going to live in peace. This is our yearning. This is what we will have. God should help. We encourage everybody. That everybody is accusing people who stand up for the Palestinians as being anti-Semitic. We as self-hating Jews, we are simply following the words of the Torah, the hundreds of thousands of Jews around the world. We are sticking to our Torah. We are the representation of Judaism, and we will, with God's help, because it's in the Torah. Why are you rebelling against me? It will not be successful. We will be successful with God's help, with the recreation of a free Palestine. We urge everybody, pray to God, who has everything in His hand, for a speedy and peaceful removal of the impediment to peace, the Zionist state of Israel, so we can live in peace. And then stand up. Don't be intimidated. You are not anti-Semitic. We will together work that we can live together as God's creations. And ultimately, we pray for the day where not only a free Palestine, but a free world where all humanity will serve God and peace and harmony. Amen. Sooner nowadays.